Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window of Olympus Base, watching the distant stars twinkle against the black void of space. The monitoring station orbited far beyond Pluto, at the very edge of human space. For 3 years, Jake had commanded this lonely outpost, scanning the darkness for signals from other worlds. The base was small but important. 12 crew members lived and worked here, listening to the universe with the most powerful receivers humanity had ever built. They caught radio waves from distant galaxies, mapped new star systems, and watched for any sign that Earth was not alone. Jake sipped his coffee and checked the duty roster. Dr. Lisa Carter was working the night shift in the communications lab. She was the best at her job, able to decode alien languages that other humans could barely understand. If anyone could make sense of the strange signals they sometimes received, it was Lisa. The quiet hum of the station systems was suddenly broken by an urgent beeping sound. Jake's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips as emergency lights began flashing throughout the base. He had never seen this particular alarm before. "Captain Morrison to the communications lab immediately," Lisa's voice crackled over the intercom. Her tone was tight with excitement and fear. Jake ran through the narrow corridors of the station. The communications lab was at the heart of Olympus Base, filled with screens and equipment that monitored thousands of frequencies across the galaxy. Lisa stood in front of the main display, her hands shaking as she worked the controls. "What do we have, Lisa?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Sir, we just received a quantum burst transmission from the Andromeda sector," Lisa replied, her eyes wide. "The signal is unlike anything we've ever detected. It's definitely artificial, and it's powerful enough to cross the gap between galaxies." Jake felt his heart begin to race. A signal from another galaxy was impossible. The distances were too great, the power requirements too enormous. Yet the evidence was right there on the screen, a complex pattern of energy pulses that pulsed with mathematical precision. "Are you certain it's not natural?" Jake asked. "Could it be from a pulsar or some other stellar phenomenon?" Lisa shook her head. "No, sir. Look at these patterns. They repeat every 37 seconds, and there are clear mathematical relationships in the frequency modulations. This is definitely intelligent communication." Other crew members began arriving in the lab, drawn by the emergency alert. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hayes, the station's tactical officer, pushed through the crowd to examine the data. His military training made him think differently than the scientists. If someone sent this signal across galactic distances, they had to use incredible amounts of energy, Ryan said. "This isn't casual communication. Someone is desperately trying to get a message across the universe." Lisa nodded and began running the signal through her translation programs. The computers worked for several minutes, comparing the patterns to every known language database. Slowly, words began to appear on the screen. "Help us," Lisa whispered, reading the first translated phrase. "Please, anyone who receives this message, help us." The room fell silent except for the soft humming of the computers. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as more text appeared on the screen. "We are the Zalani Republic of the world Zephyria in the Andromeda sector. Our people are dying. The Vorthak Empire has invaded our space and destroyed 3 of our colony worlds. They enslave our people and strip our planets of all resources. We have no weapons, no armies, no way to fight back." The message continued to unfold, telling a story of horror and desperation. The Zalani were a peaceful species who had never developed military technology. They built beautiful cities and created amazing art, but they had no knowledge of war. When the Vorthak came with their war fleets, the Zalani could only watch helplessly as their civilization was destroyed. "We have sent this message to every star system we can reach," the translation continued. "We know the chances are small that anyone will receive it, and smaller still that anyone will care about our fate. But we must try. If there are others like us in the universe, others who believe that peace is better than war, please help us. We do not want to die. Jake stared at the message, feeling the weight of an entire civilization's desperate hope. Lisa's translation programs were still working, revealing technical data about the Vorthik invasion. The enemy had hundreds of warships and millions of soldiers. They were moving systematically through Zilani space, world by world, until nothing would remain. How long ago was this sent? Jake asked. Lisa checked her calculations. Based on the signal degradation and the distance traveled, I estimate it was transmitted about 6 months ago. But sir, if they were under attack then, they might already be dead. Ryan finished grimly. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Lisa, send a copy of this message to Terra Command immediately. Use the fastest quantum relay we have. Ryan, prepare a complete tactical analysis of everything we can learn about this Vorthik Empire. Sir, Ryan said carefully, Terra Command is going to want to know what you recommend. Jake looked out at the stars again, thinking about a species of peaceful beings facing extinction in another galaxy. Humanity had fought many wars, survived countless dangers, and learned to be strong in a universe that was often cruel. Maybe it was time to use that strength for someone else. Tell them that Captain Morrison recommends immediate intervention, Jake said. If the Galactic Federation won't help these people, then maybe it's time for humanity to act alone. The crew of Olympus Base worked through the night, refining the translation and gathering every piece of information they could about the distant war. By morning, the message was on its way to Earth, carrying with it the desperate plea of a dying civilization and the recommendation of a human captain who believed that some things were worth fighting for, no matter how far away they were. In the depths of space, the quantum relay carried humanity's first knowledge of the Zilani Republic toward Earth, where it would soon reach people who had the power to answer their cry for help. Admiral Susan Blake stood in the center of Terra Command's main operations room, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human military installation across the solar system. The message from Olympus Base had arrived 12 hours ago, and she had not slept since reading it. The room buzzed with activity as officers from every branch of the military worked to understand what humanity was being asked to do. Show me the analysis again, Admiral Blake said to her aide, Commander Ashley. Price. Ashley touched her tablet, and the main display changed to show a three-dimensional map of the Andromeda Galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of Vorthak forces, while blue dots showed the remaining Zilani worlds. The red was spreading like a disease, consuming more blue dots every day. The Zilani have maybe 2 months before complete extinction, Ashley reported. Our best estimates put the Vorthak fleet at over 300 capital ships, plus support vessels. They're using a systematic approach, taking one world at a time and stripping it of all resources before moving to the next. General Patricia Stone, head of the Army's Galactic Operations Division, frowned at the display. Ma'am, this is beyond anything we've ever attempted. We're talking about sending a military force to another galaxy. The logistics alone could cripple our entire fleet. Admiral Blake nodded. She understood the challenges better than anyone. Humanity had never sent ships beyond their own galaxy. The distance was almost impossible to imagine, and the fuel requirements would drain their strategic reserves. But the alternative was to let an entire peaceful civilization die while humanity did nothing. What's the status of the Galactic Federation response? Admiral Blake asked. Colonel Marcus Webb, liaison to the Federation Council, shook his head. They've officially declined to intervene. The Altarian Republic says it's too far away. The Centauri Alliance claims they don't have the military resources. Even our closest allies are staying out of this one. They're afraid, Ashley said. Quietly, the Federation species have heard of the Vorthik before. They have a reputation for being utterly ruthless. Anyone who fights them either wins completely or gets wiped out trying. Admiral Blake walked to the window overlooking Earth's blue oceans. Somewhere out there in another galaxy, people were dying while she debated whether to help them. The decision felt impossibly heavy, but she knew what humanity had to do. "Activate Operation Longreach," she said. "Authorization, Blake 77 Alpha." The room fell silent for a moment, then exploded into activity. Operation Longreach was humanity's most ambitious military plan, designed for exactly this kind of situation. Within minutes, orders were flying to every human military base in the solar system. At Luna Base, Colonel Webb began coordinating the rapid deployment of ground forces. The 1st Terran Expeditionary Force had been training for deep space operations for years, but no one had imagined they would be going quite this deep. 50,000 soldiers began preparing for a journey that would take them further from home than any human had ever traveled. In the orbital shipyards above Mars, Captain Noah Griffin received orders to prepare his ship for immediate deployment. The Liberty's Edge was humanity's newest dreadnought, armed with quantum torpedoes and experimental shield systems. Griffin had commanded her for only 6 months, but he knew every bolt and wire in her hull. "Chief Engineer Adams," Griffin called to his second-in-command. "How long to bring all systems online?" Chief Nicole Adams checked her displays. 6 hours. "For basic operations, sir. 12 for full combat readiness." "You have 4 hours for combat readiness," Griffin replied. "We're going to war." Similar scenes played out across human space. Captain Elena Rodriguez prepared her carrier Valkyrie for launch, loading fighter squadrons and assault shuttles. Admiral Carl Washington, chosen to command the expedition fleet, reviewed tactical plans that had been theoretical until now. Dr. Kevin Park worked frantically in his laboratory beneath the Colorado mountains, loading humanity's most secret weapons onto transport ships. Quantum torpedoes that could crack a moon in half. Gravity bombs that turned enemy ships into twisted metal. Experimental energy weapons that the Federation didn't even know existed. Master Sergeant Danny Clark trained his troops in the art of fighting aliens in zero gravity. Most of his soldiers had never seen combat outside their own solar system, but they were volunteers who understood what they were risking. They came from every human world. Tough miners from asteroid belt colonies, disciplined pilots from the Jupiter orbital platforms, and hardened Marines from Earth's military academies. The speed of humanity's mobilization shocked even their own leaders. Within 24 hours, the largest military fleet in human history was assembling near Saturn's rings. Warships that normally took weeks to prepare were ready for combat in hours. Supply ships loaded with everything from medical supplies to nuclear warheads joined the growing formation. Ambassador Helen Murphy found herself fielding emergency calls from worried Federation allies. The peaceful trading partners they thought they knew were transforming into something that frightened them. Ships built for exploration were revealing hidden weapon systems. Cargo vessels were disgorging armies of soldiers. The humans everyone thought were harmless were showing their true nature. Ambassador Murphy, the Altarian representative, said over the quantum communication link, "Our intelligence services are reporting massive human military movements. What exactly are your people planning?" Helen looked out at the growing fleet and smiled grimly. "We're planning to do what you wouldn't do. We're going to save the Zelani." The final preparations took 48 hours. When Admiral Washington gave the order to depart, humanity's response to genocide began its journey toward Andromeda. 127 ships carrying 50,000 human soldiers, scientists, and support staff entered hyperspace, heading for a galaxy 3 million light-years away. As the fleet disappeared into the void, Captain Morrison's words echoed through Terra Command. The Deathworlders had answered the call, and the universe would never be the same. Fleet Admiral Carl Washington stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the strange stars of the Andromeda Galaxy grow brighter through the main view screen. 6 months of travel through the void between galaxies had tested every system on every ship, but the human fleet had made it. 127 vessels carrying humanity's hopes across impossible distances. The journey had been the longest in human history. Ships designed for travel within their own galaxy had been pushed to their absolute limits. Chief Engineer Nicole Adams had worked miracles keeping the experimental long-range drives functioning, but even she admitted they were running on borrowed time. Admiral, Communications Officer Julie Peters reported, "We're receiving multiple signals from the Zephyria system. The Zilani are still alive, but their transmissions are getting weaker." Washington nodded grimly. During the long journey, the fleet had received occasional updates from the distant war. 3 more Zilani colonies had fallen to the Vorthak invasion. The crystalline beings were running out of places to hide. Dr. Amanda Foster, the fleet's expert on alien biology, had spent months studying everything they knew about both species. The Zilani were unlike anything in human experience. They were living crystals that grew rather than being born, and they could share thoughts through harmonic vibrations. Most importantly, they had never developed the concept of violence. How can an entire species never learn to fight? Captain Noah Griffin had asked during one of their planning sessions. Imagine if humans had evolved on a world with no predators, no natural disasters, and unlimited resources, Dr. Foster had explained. The Zilani never needed to compete for survival. War is literally beyond their understanding. The Vorthak were the opposite. They were a hive mind species that saw other life forms as either useful resources or obstacles to be removed. Their invasion of Zilani space was not driven by hatred or anger, but by cold efficiency. They wanted the Zilani worlds for their crystal formations, which could be used to build incredibly powerful computers. Admiral, Captain Morrison reported from his position at the intelligence station. Long-range sensors are detecting massive Vorthak fleet movements. They're massing for what looks like a final assault on the Zilani homeworld. Washington studied the tactical display. The Vorthak had nearly 200 ships surrounding Zephyria, preparing to land armies that would strip the planet of every living crystal. The Zilani had no weapons, no armies, and no way to fight back. "Signal the fleet," Washington ordered. "Battle stations. We're going in." As the human ships moved deeper into the system, they encountered their first Zilani vessel. The alien ship was beautiful beyond description, looking more like a piece of art than a machine. It was made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, and it moved through space without any visible engines. Ambassador Claire Johnson, humanity's first contact specialist, established communication with the Zilani ship. The quantum translators worked quickly, converting harmonic vibrations into words that humans could understand. "Unknown vessels," the Zilani message came through the speakers. "Please identify yourselves. We have no quarrel with any species. We seek only peace." Claire activated the translation system and spoke carefully into the microphone. "This is Ambassador Claire Johnson of the human species. We received your distress call and have come to help you fight the Vorthak." There was a long pause before the Zilani responded. When the translation came through, it carried tones of confusion and hope. "You have traveled here to help us? But we sent our message to random coordinates across the universe. We never expected anyone to receive it, much less respond." "We received it," Claire replied, "and we're here to make sure your people survive." The Zilani ship changed course and approached the human fleet. As it came closer, the humans could see that it was inhabited by beings of living crystal, their bodies reflecting light in patterns that seemed to shift with their emotions. "I am Prime Resonance Harmony," the alien leader introduced itself. "I speak for all Zilani in this system. We are grateful beyond measure that you have come, but I do not understand this word 'fight' that you use." Claire looked at Admiral Washington, who nodded for her to continue. "The Vorthak are attacking your people. We have come to stop them using our military forces. Military forces? Harmony's confusion was clear, even through the translation. We do not know this concept. What is military? Dr. Foster leaned forward and spoke into the communicator. Prime Resonance Harmony, we are soldiers. We specialize in combat against hostile forces. We have weapons designed to destroy enemy ships and protect peaceful species like yours. The silence stretched for several minutes. Finally, Harmony responded, and the translation carried tones of wonder and sadness. You have devoted your lives to violence so that others may live in peace. This is a sacrifice we cannot comprehend. How can beings capable of such destruction also be capable of such kindness? Admiral Washington took the communicator. Because sometimes, Prime Resonance Harmony, peace can only be protected by those willing to fight for it. We're not here to teach you about war. We're here to make sure you never have to learn. As the human fleet formed up around the Zalani homeworld, long-range sensors detected the approaching Vorthak invasion force. The insectoid aliens had no idea they were about to encounter Deathworlders who had traveled across the universe to answer a cry for help. Captain Griffin powered up the weapon systems on the Liberty's edge. Admiral, all ships report ready for combat. Washington looked at the tactical display showing the overwhelming Vorthak forces. Signal all ships. Today we show the universe what happens when you threaten the innocent. Today we show them what humans fight for. The stage was set for a battle that would decide the fate of an entire species and announce humanity's arrival as the guardians of the galaxy. The Vorthak invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace, expecting an easy victory. For months, they had swept through Zalani space, meeting no resistance from the peaceful crystal beings. Their queen had promised them another world to strip of resources, another species to add to their slave labor force. They had no idea that the universe was about to teach them about Deathworlders. Admiral Washington watched the enemy fleet appear on his screens. 200 Vorthak warships, each one the size of a human city, moved in perfect formation toward Zephyria. Their hulls were black and covered with spikes, looking more like weapons than ships. Behind them came the transport vessels carrying millions of Vorthak soldiers. All ships, this is Admiral Washington, he spoke into the fleet communication system. These aliens think they can destroy innocent people while we watch. Show them how wrong they are. Captain Noah Griffin felt the Liberty's edge come alive around him as her weapon systems powered up. The Dreadnought's quantum torpedoes were loaded and ready, each one capable of destroying a mountain. His crew had trained for this moment their entire careers. Sir, his weapons officer reported. Target locks acquired on the lead Vorthak ships. Fire, Griffin ordered. The Liberty's edge unleashed her full fury. Quantum torpedoes streaked across space at nearly the speed of light, followed by particle beam weapons that could cut through any known armor. The lead Vorthak ship, proud and confident a moment before, simply ceased to exist. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched from the bridge of her carrier Valkyrie as her fighter squadrons launched into space. Human pilots, trained on the gravity wells and radiation storms of their home system, flew their ships like extensions of their own bodies. They dove through Vorthak formations, their weapons tearing through enemy hulls with precision that amazed even their own commanders. This is Gold Leader, Lieutenant Commander Tony Martinez reported over the radio. Enemy ships are bigger than expected, but their weapons are slow. They can't track us at high speed. Tony led his squadron in a suicide run against the Vorthak flagship. The massive enemy ship was protected by energy shields and point defense weapons, but the human pilots had trained for exactly this situation. They flew through the defensive fire as if it was not there, their ships dancing between energy beams that would have vaporized them. Gold Leader to all squadrons, Tony called out as his ship dove toward the enemy flagship's bridge. Remember, These things kill peaceful people for fun. Make them pay for it. Tony's fighter slammed into the Vorthok command center, his ship's nuclear warhead turning the massive vessel's bridge into a ball of fire. The flagship began to drift, its command structure destroyed by one human pilot who refused to let evil go unpunished. The space battle revealed something the Vorthok had never encountered before. Other species fought wars according to rules, seeking victory while minimizing losses. Humans fought with a fury that came from the very core of their being. They took risks that seemed insane, made sacrifices that appeared pointless, and kept fighting long after any reasonable species would have surrendered. Commander Julie Peters led a boarding party onto a Vorthok cruiser, her Marines fighting through narrow corridors filled with hostile aliens. The Vorthok soldiers were tough and well-armed, but they had never faced humans in close combat before. "Keep moving," Peters shouted as her team advanced through the enemy ship. These bugs picked the wrong species to mess with. The human Marines moved through the Vorthok ship like a force of nature. Where the insectoid aliens expected careful, calculated attacks, they found soldiers who seemed to enjoy the chaos of battle. The humans used the ship's own systems against its crew, turning life support into a weapon and using maintenance passages to appear where they were least expected. On the planet below, Major Chris Anderson led the first wave of orbital drops directly into Vorthok-occupied territory. The human soldiers fell from the sky in armored pods, landing in the middle of enemy positions like meteors of destruction. Sergeant Linda Parker's squad found themselves surrounded by Vorthok ground forces, outnumbered 10-1 and cut off from reinforcements. Any other species might have surrendered or tried to escape. Instead, Parker looked at the enemy positions and smiled. "Looks like we're where we need to be, boys," she told her squad. "These bugs have been hurting innocent people. Time to return the favor." Parker's squad turned their desperate situation into an advantage, using improvised explosives and captured Vorthok weapons to create chaos in the enemy ranks. They moved like ghosts through the crystal forest of Zephyria, striking at enemy supply lines and communication centers. Corporal Greg Murphy's demolition team discovered that Vorthok hive structures had a critical weakness. The aliens built their bases like their ships, with central command nodes that controlled everything else. Murphy and his team infiltrated the largest enemy base and planted charges at its foundation. "Fire in the hole," Murphy called out as his team retreated to a safe distance. The explosion that followed could be seen from orbit. The entire Vorthok base collapsed in on itself, taking 3,000 enemy soldiers with it. Similar strikes across the planet left the Vorthok ground forces confused and leaderless, but it was Admiral Washington's final gambit that ended the battle. As the Vorthok fleet began to regroup for another attack, he opened a communication channel to their surviving commanders. "This is Admiral Washington of the human fleet," he announced. "You have 30 seconds to begin retreating from this system, or we will demonstrate why our species controls the most dangerous weapons in known space." The Vorthok response was predictable. They had never retreated from a battle and saw no reason to start now. Their remaining ships moved forward, ready to overwhelm the smaller human force through sheer numbers. Washington nodded to his weapons officer. "Deploy the nuclear mines." Space around Zephyria lit up like a new sun as dozens of nuclear weapons detonated simultaneously. The Vorthok fleet, caught in the middle of the minefield, simply vanished in balls of atomic fire. The surviving Vorthok ships fled toward the edge of the system, but not before their queen transmitted a message that would spread throughout the galaxy. She spoke of a species of monsters that fought without mercy, showed no fear of death, and possessed weapons that could destroy worlds. As the last Vorthok ship disappeared into hyperspace, the Zilani finally understood what their rescuers had done for them. The peaceful crystal beings had been saved by warriors who came from the other side of the universe. asking nothing in return but the chance to protect the innocent. 3 weeks after the battle, Admiral Washington stood in the crystal gardens of Zephyria, watching human engineers work alongside Zilani scientists. The sight still amazed him. Beings of living crystal, their bodies catching and reflecting light in patterns of pure beauty, worked next to humans in their practical military uniforms. 2 species from different galaxies, learning from each other. Dr. Amanda Foster had spent every waking hour studying Zilani biology and culture. What she discovered changed everything humans thought they knew about intelligent life. The Zilani did not just live in harmony with their world, they were part of it. Their crystal bodies grew from the planet itself, and when they died, they returned to become part of the beautiful formations that covered their world. They don't understand the concept of individual ownership, Dr. Foster explained to Admiral Washington. Everything belongs to everyone. When one Zilani learns something new, all Zilani everywhere instantly know it through their harmonic connections. This discovery led to something unprecedented in galactic history. The Zilani offered to share their advanced technology with humanity, not as payment for their rescue, but simply because they wanted to help their new friends. Their energy manipulation systems could power human ships for centuries without refueling. Their crystal computing technology could process information faster than anything humans had ever built. Captain Morrison, now serving as the head of Terran Forward Command, established humanity's first permanent base in another galaxy. The base was built on Zephyria's largest moon, a strategic position that would allow humans to monitor the entire sector for future threats. The Vorthik won't give up, Morrison told his staff during their first planning meeting. They've never lost a war before, and their queen will want revenge. We need to be ready for their return. Colonel Webb began the difficult task of training Zilani volunteers in basic defensive tactics. The crystal beings wanted to help protect their world, but their peaceful nature made them poor soldiers. Instead, they offered something much more valuable. The Zilani had mastered quantum communication technology that could send messages instantly across any distance. With their help, humanity could maintain real-time contact between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. Orders from Earth could reach the human fleet in seconds instead of months. Captain Griffin found himself in command of a mixed human Zilani patrol fleet. His ship, the Liberty's Edge, now carried Zilani communication equipment that allowed him to coordinate with human forces across both galaxies. The Zilani crew members who joined his ship amazed him with their dedication and intelligence. "Sir," his new Zilani communications officer reported during a routine patrol, "we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace." Griffin's heart sank. The Vorthik had returned, just as Morrison had predicted. But as the new contacts appeared on his screens, he realized these were not enemy ships. They were vessels from a dozen different species, all flying the flags of the Galactic Federation. Ambassador Claire Johnson received the first official communication from the Federation fleet. The message was from Admiral Helen Murphy, who had been promoted to head the Federation's new Rapid Response Division. "Ambassador Johnson," Admiral Murphy's message began, "the Federation Council has voted to formally request human assistance in protecting endangered species throughout the galaxy. We've never seen anything like your response to the Zilani crisis. The Federation needs humanity's strength." The political implications were enormous. For years, humanity had been junior members of the Galactic Federation, respected but not truly feared. Now every species in the galaxy knew what humans were capable of when innocent lives were threatened. Dr. Kevin Park continued his work developing new weapons and defensive systems. But now he had Zilani crystal technology to work with. The combination of human military innovation and Zilani energy mastery produced technologies that seemed like magic. Shields that could absorb any attack and turn the energy into power for their own weapons. ships that could travel faster than light without using fuel. Meanwhile, Master Sergeant Danny Clark established the first intergalactic military academy on Zephyr's surface. Human tactics and Zilani technology were taught side by side, creating a new generation of defenders who understood both war and peace. The most important development came when the Zilani revealed their greatest secret: their harmonic communication network extended far beyond their own species. They had been listening to distress calls from across the universe for thousands of years, but had never been able to help because they had no concept of military intervention. "There are others out there," Prime Resonance Harmony explained to Admiral Washington. "Peaceful species facing extinction, calling for help that never comes. With your military strength and our communication network, we could save them all." This revelation led to the formation of the Terran-Zilani Alliance, humanity's first extragalactic partnership. Human military bases were established throughout the Andromeda Galaxy, each one staffed by volunteers who understood they might never see Earth again. The Alliance's first joint mission came sooner than expected. A desperate signal arrived from the Triangulum Galaxy, where a species called the Scythians were facing extinction from robotic invaders. Without hesitation, Admiral Washington assembled a joint human-Zilani fleet and departed for another impossible rescue mission. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of Terran Forward Command, watching the joint fleet disappear into hyperspace. He thought about the journey that had brought humanity to this point. It had started with a simple distress signal received at a lonely monitoring station at the edge of human space. "Communications," Morrison called to his duty officer. "Send a message to Terra Command. Tell them the mission is complete, but our work is just beginning. The Zilani are safe, the Alliance is strong, and humanity has found its place in the universe." Morrison paused, thinking about the words that would define humanity's future among the stars. "Tell them we're no longer just explorers or traders. We're the guardians now. Wherever innocents face extinction, wherever peaceful species cry out for help, humanity will answer. We are the sword and shield of the galaxy, and we will never let the defenseless stand alone." The message traveled instantly across the universe, carried by Zilani quantum communication networks to Earth and beyond. Throughout human space, people celebrated the news that their species had found its destiny among the stars. They were no longer just visitors in the galaxy. They were its protectors.